Now on the Praxis 5039, you are going to be required to write 2 constructed responses. Now the good news is that the tasks are very clear and defined on this exam. And so you're not going to really have to do any kind of ambiguous writing. But you do want to make sure that you include a few things in your writing to make sure you get that score of 3. The other good news is that the constructed response and the multiple choice scores are combined. So if you do really well on the multiple choice, you can kind of flake a little bit on the constructed response and still pass the exam. But I'm here today to show you how to crush the constructed response and how to use the information in the task to really hone in on your skills and to write properly for this particular task, okay? So it's pretty easy. You just have to follow the instructions and complete everything they ask you in the task, and you should be able to get at the very least a 2, but hopefully a 3. All right, so I'm gonna take a look at one of our constructed responses in our book. So we have 4 of them there for you with extensive explanation and sample essays so you can see exactly how to attack that. But I'd like to do one here, one of my favorite poems by Langston Hughes. And you will probably see Langston Hughes in the multiple choice section of your Praxis 5038 or 5039, because Langston Hughes is a prominent Harlem Renaissance writer who wrote about, Black liberation and things like that. So let's take a look at our constructed response for this. This is going to come from interpreting literature here. And we are going to make sure that we are putting our literature thinking caps on, and we're going to try to find meaning in the poem where it's not explicitly stated. But there's a lot of opportunities here in this poem to derive meaning. So that's why I included it in our book. So here's my task. Let's read the task. Read carefully the following poem, Daybreak in Alabama by Langston Hughes. Then, using at least 2 examples from the poem, describe how Hughes uses imagery and sensory details to describe his ideal world. All right, so let's take a look at this poem here. I'm just going to zoom in very quickly. So I'm going to read it aloud like I did before. When I get to be a colored composer, I'm going to write me some music about daybreak in Alabama. And I'm going to put the prettiest songs in it, rising out of the ground like a swamp mist and falling out of heaven like soft dew. I'm going to put some tall, tall trees in it, and the scent of pine needles, and the smell of red clay after rain, and long red necks, and poppy-colored faces, and big brown arms, and the field daisy eyes of black and white, black people. And I'm going to put white hands and black hands and brown and yellow hands and red clay earth hands in it, touching everybody with kind fingers, touching each other natural as dew. And in that dawn of music, when I get to be a colored composer and write about daybreak in Alabama. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of sensory, natural kind of images here. There are, things talking about the way Alabama is in nature, talking about, swamp mist and tall trees and the scent of pine needles and clay and, dew, natural dew coming up in the morning and things like that. So on my notepad, I might put something like natural elements. And I might, just kind of think about that in terms of like soft dew, pine needles. And again, I'm writing very quickly because I only have a few minutes to do this task. Clay. So nature is a big part of this. So I want to be thinking about that. All right. And remember, in my task here, it says, read carefully the poem, then using at least 2 examples from the poem, describe how Hughes uses imagery and sensory details. So we've got the imagery, we have natural elements, and then we also have, long red necks, poppy-colored faces, big brown arms, field daisy eyes, black and white, black and white. We have that integration of people, black and white, black and white. Now, this was written, I believe it was written in the 1930s. I think it's written in the 1930s. So this is around Jim Crow time, after Reconstruction, lots of segregation. Black people are still working in the South for much fewer dollars than white people are. There's still a lot of segregation. And this particular poem, if we're going to dig down deep and think about what's going on here? We are thinking about desegregation, right? Langston Hughes is essentially desegregating Alabama, which is one of the most segregated places in the United States. Some would argue still to this day, that this Langston Hughes is desegregating Alabama with this poem, with these images, okay? And I would even go on to say that this desegregation is as natural as the natural elements used in the poem. That's how I would read it. That Langston Hughes is basically saying it's our nature to be integrated. It's our nature to work together. It's our nature to be black and white, brown hands and black hands and brown arms and white arms and poppy-colored faces. We are all supposed to be together. And if I were to be the composer, if I were to be the artist of the world, I would integrate the people because that is as natural as dew, meaning it's in our biology to be together, not separate. That's how I would read this poem, okay? So let's take a look at what we wrote. Now, this would be a constructed response of a 3. Notice it's just one paragraph, but if you complete the task in one paragraph, then it's a 3. And if you really get the gist of what's going on. So let's first just go right in and say exactly what we're talking about here. Langston Hughes's ideal world is an integrated Alabama. Notice that. Let's go back to the task here. It said, using at least 2 examples from the poem, describe how Hughes uses imagery and sensory details to describe his ideal world. So right away, I describe the ideal world. So Langston Hughes's ideal world is an integrated Alabama, where black is beautiful and black and white people live and work together, because that's part of the poem. Now I need to support that claim that I just made with a quote, with some words, with some lines, and that's what I'm going to do here. In the poem Daybreak in Alabama, Langston Hughes uses sensory details like, and here come the specific examples, the scent of pine needles and the smell of red clay to describe Alabama. He then uses natural images to describe black people as beautiful and long red necks and poppy-colored faces and big brown arms and field daisy eyes. Those are images of black people. He also integrates people of different races when he uses the image in these lines. And I'm going to put white hands and black hands and brown and yellow hands, so all different types of people together, and red clay earth hands in it, touching everybody with kind fingers, touching each other, and here it is. As natural as dew. There. So again, I make a claim, I have a supporting detail. I make a claim, I have a supporting detail. And here I go on, just like we did in the study companion, to further explain that. The term natural as dew is another reference to nature, implying that black and white people living in an integrated society is natural or biological. While Alabama is often associated with racial segregation, Langston Hughes desegregates the southern state in his poem Daybreak in Alabama. So again, I talk about this desegregation. I talk about the images of nature. I talk about, long red necks and poppy-colored faces and big brown arms. I use all that imagery to talk about the meaning here. I have checked all the boxes which asked, describe how Langston Hughes uses imagery and sensory detail to describe his ideal world. I also put in there, black is beautiful. Where black is beautiful. Langston Hughes' ideal world is an integrated Alabama where black is beautiful, not a crime, right? Where black is right here, when black people are beautiful, long red necks, poppy-colored faces, and big brown arms, and field daisy eyes. So he's using those images of nature to show black as beautiful, not as criminal. So you could go into even more. Maybe this is one of your favorite poems too, and you read it a different way. Whatever you say, all you have to do is back it up with images and lines from the poem, and you're fine. This would be considered a score of 3 because not only did I show that I understood the poem and I completed the task, I also gave several examples and several explanations on how I did this. So just in one paragraph, I could probably get a 3. All right, so hopefully that helps you with the English Content Area 5039 Constructed Response section. Remember, we have a comprehensive book that not only goes over the constructed response, but also is very, very comprehensive for the multiple choice. And at the end of our books for the 5038 and the 5039, we have a literary canon section where we go through all the major works of all the major authors of all the major time periods. So that'll help you answer those multiple choice questions about specific literature that you may not know. So that will also help you with the constructed response, because we talk about George Orwell in there. We talk about Langston Hughes. We talk about all the major authors, and those major authors are probably going to be referenced in the constructed response. They usually give you, a major body of work or an author who's well known that you are going to write about. Okay. So practice your writing, read more literature. You're definitely going to want to read and analyze literature. That will help you get quicker in finding, meaning and all of that inside these particular tasks. So if you rarely read poetry and you rarely read literature, these constructed responses are going to be very difficult for you. But if you read a lot of literature and you read poetry and you just kind of start to derive meaning from poems, you start to think a little bit deeper about literature, you're going to do better on this particular constructed response. Remember, you're always looking for meaning that's not explicitly stated. Langston Hughes did not say, I want to desegregate Alabama, right? Instead, he used imagery and tone and line and all of these different ways. And I, as the reader, derived that meaning and then put it in my constructed response. That's going to be most important, all right? If you have any questions, please throw them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit a thumbs up if you liked the video. Also hit your notification so you're notified when we upload new content. Thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome day.